Hello there, this is Ty the Movie Guy and welcome to my third video. And in today's video, we are going to talk about the movies that I discovered in 2020. These are movies that could have come out like a while ago, like years before 2020, but I just haven't seen them yet because in 2020 we all had tons of time, so I spent it watching movies and we got some good movies on this list, so let's get into it. Okay, so the first batch of movies we have is the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit series. And right off the bat, I'm going to say my favorite part about all these movies was the beautiful music and scenery. It just really made the movies look good and sound good. But my big problem with them is they are painfully long. Like, Lord of the Rings was like 4 hours, and The Hobbit was a bit better. They were like 3 hours. But that's long for a movie, and like they don't really, the movies are like back to back, so it kind of just like mixes together and you don't know what scene is from which movie, and just they're they're long, and not gonna lie, some of them made me fall asleep. Maybe it was because of the beautiful soothing music, but yeah, I fell asleep in some of the movies, which was unfortunate, but luckily I rewatched the scenes I missed and they're good, but they should have maybe broke up the movies a bit more or something. But overall, I really like this series. It's just maybe make more movies, or I don't know, just make them less long. Next we have is the Harry Potter series, and the first Harry Potter movie I watched a couple of years ago because we were going to Universal Studios and my mom wanted us to watch it to familiarize us with Hogwarts, I guess. But when I was young, I didn't really want to watch it, so I just like had a bad attitude about it and just like, oh, this is trash. This movie is trash. But now rewatching it with the whole series, I liked it a lot more. And I don't know really like all the fans' opinions on these movies, so I'm not biased at all. But I think the Goblet of Fire and the Deathly Hollows are my favorite. Like I just like the tournament scenes in the Goblet of Fire, and I like the final battle vibe that the Deathly Hollows Part Two gives off. And to be honest, the three in the middle, the Order of the Phoenix, the what's that one's name? Uh, Half Blood Prince and Deathly Hallows Part 1. I am not a fan of them because they just felt really slow. That's just my opinion. I don't know how others feel about that, but they just felt slow to me. And then the three first ones I also liked, but just not as much as the other ones I was talking about. But overall, also a good series. Next one. Now we have the Christopher Nolan movies I watched, and I love The Dark Knight, so I found out Christopher Nolan directed those movies, and then I looked into it, and I'm like, oh, Christopher Nolan directed these too. I'll give them a try. So first, I tried Inception, and I loved it. It was amazing. Like it was so trippy, but I some surprisingly understood it anyways. But I loved it. And then I gave Interstellar a try, and I found it very slow and kind of just sad how they're just going to leave the human race behind and start a new civilization. That just kind of felt sad to me, and it was also kind of slow. And it was another one I fell asleep to, so I guess, I don't know, I really thought it was slow. But when I woke up, I saw this really cool scene in space where it was like a big fight scene, so I kind of want to rewatch it for that scene, but for any other reason, I don't really care for it. And then I tried Tenet, which came out this year, because it kind of reminded me of Inception because it was all trippy too. And I gave it a try and I loved it. It's probably my favorite movie of 2020, and it doesn't get the love it deserves. Maybe because like people couldn't watch it because like they didn't want to go to theaters or something, but I watched it and oh, it's good. Are the Quentin Tarantino movies I watched. And before I go any further, if you are a kid, these are the only movies I wouldn't really recommend, even though there's other ones that are R rated. These ones are just, they have some like weird sexual scenes that like aren't consensual, I'd say. And it's also super gruesome. So just a warning to the kids out there if you're watching. And I'm going to start off by saying Quentin Tarantino has like this superpower of making something really gruesome that like wouldn't come across as appealing, but he actually makes it appealing. And it's weird how he does that. And I'd say The Hateful Eight is probably the best at making you enjoy something so unsettling. And I don't know, he has that power, and it's just his thing, and I find it really interesting. And I thought Pulp Fiction is probably my favorite because I like the comedy that Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta have. Don't get me wrong, Bruce Willis was good in it too, but I just like Samuel L. Jackson and John Travolta's characters more. And then Kill Bill, I liked too, but it's probably like my least favorite because it kind of just felt like a video game where it's like first you gotta fight this person to get to that person, and then you gotta fight that person, and on and on and on. And yeah, it was good, but it wasn't that much of a story to me. And the Django Unchained, the D is silent, was good from the part I watched, but it's another one I fell asleep to. And this is one that I did fall asleep to, but I really want to rewatch it because it was really interesting and it seemed like historically accurate. And yeah, overall, I like these ones too. They have like this really weird, gruesome vibe, but I dig it. Next is the Matrix trilogy. Right off the bat, I'm gonna say like my favorite part about this whole trilogy was the really trippy fight scenes, and I have a feeling that's everyone or most people's favorite part also. But the plot just felt like the whole plot was like we gotta go in the Matrix to talk to someone. Oh no, the machines found us. We gotta fight our way out. Like that kind of happened over and over again. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Cause I liked it anyways. So I guess just keep doing it then. But yeah, overall just good, but not great. But yeah, it's good to watch once, but probably never again. Maybe I guess. Oh, the John Wick trilogy. Right away, I'm gonna say I loved this trilogy. Like, the fighting was easily the best part, but the story I also really liked. And this trilogy was so good that I'm kind of mad at myself for not watching the first two sooner so I could have watched Parabellum in theaters. That would have been really cool to watch, but I'm glad I can watch the fourth one in theaters. And I know they're gonna make one because of that amazing scene at the end of Parabellum where Lawrence Fishburne's character was like, "John, I'm pissed off. Are you pissed off?" And John's like, "Yeah, I'm pissed off." Next is the Planet of the Apes trilogy, and I'm gonna be honest, the first one I found very sad and depressing how like the apes got like beat up for most of the movie, and then the apes fought back and beat up the humans, even though they kind of deserved it. It was still sad, and the ending was good, but it wasn't enough to make the rest of the movie good. But the other two movies I did like because they were like less depressing, and like people still died, but it wasn't just like one beating on the other. They like fought each other, and it made for good action and everything. And what's good is Matt Reeves directed the last two, and I liked those two, and he's gonna be the guy directing Batman. So that gets me really excited for the Batman movie coming up. Next are a couple of Harrison Ford movies. We have The Fugitive and The Call of the Wild. The Call of the Wild was a really cute movie, but I wish Harrison Ford showed up sooner. Like, it was mainly about the dog, and I don't know, I just like Harrison Ford more than a dog. Don't get me wrong, I love dogs, but I think a human is a better actor for a movie. And The Fugitive was also really interesting, but I dozed off a bit at the end again. And this is another one I want to rewatch to see what happens in the end, but I didn't miss that much of it, so I'll wait a bit before rewatching it. But I really liked seeing Tommy Lee Jones playing a similar character like the general from Captain America: The First Avenger, because that movie is just very nostalgic to me. So seeing him come back at younger was just really cool to see, and he's that strict kind of army man cop kind of guy that he does a good job at. Next is the Borat duology. I think that's what you call a group of two movies. And I'm gonna say the first one I really thought was funny because it's that kind of fish out of water movie where he isn't used to America's customs. So it really reminded me of the scene in New York from Elf, where like he first got to New York and he's like doing a bunch of weird things because he's just not used to it. And then the second movie that came out this year, not gonna lie, I wasn't a huge fan of because it just felt like 2020 the movie, which isn't, I don't find that good of a movie just to like base it off of a certain year, because then if you watch it later, maybe you will remember 2020, but you probably don't want to remember 2020. It sucked, but and then if you weren't born in 2020 or you were too young, you just won't get the jokes anyways. So the first one was funny, but the second one should have had a different plot, not about 2020. Next, we have the 2020 DCEU movies. And first that came out was Birds of Prey. And I'm going to be honest, I know it came out at the start of 2020, but I found it very forgettable because like I barely remember the plot. And if it was a good movie, you would remember the plot. All I remember was just a bunch of women after a diamond, which is pretty lame for a DC movie. But Harley Quinn was one of the best parts because she's just a funny character. And then Black Mask was also cool because he's funny. And it's Ewan frickin' McGregor. And then Wonder Woman came out pretty recently, actually. And not gonna lie, the first one, I said in a past video, I really like the first one, like a lot of other people. But the second one, it was cool because it's from the 80s, but a plot all about wishing is really just like a dumb plot that sounds like it's from like a cartoon or something where it's like be careful what you wish for. Like I don't know, it's just pretty lame. And uh Pedro Pascal was probably my favorite part because it's another Star Wars character, and he just was like a cool villain because like he started out at this as this loser and he just wanted to do what he thought was right for his son to give him a good life, but like he thought if I do one thing bad I'll go back to good and we'll live a happy life, but it corrupted him. And I found it really cool. And the other villain, Cheetah, I've heard about her before and I never knew how she became a cheetah, but then when I saw she started out as a human in the movie, I'm like, oh, what's gonna happen to her? How is she gonna become a cheetah? And then nearing the end of the movie, when she says to Pedro Pascal, she's like, I want to be a ferocious predator. I literally laughed out loud because it was just so it was dumb. Now we have the two Pixar movies that came out in 2020. And first that came out was Onward. And when I watched Onward a while ago, I thought it was a cute adventure movie, and that's about it. I don't really think it's gonna be up there with all the classics like Toy Story and Wall-E, Finding Nemo, and all those really good ones. It just, I don't know, it felt kind of forgettable, but I don't know. It was cute for to watch once, but I'll probably just never watch it again. But then Soul that came out recently, I really liked it. Just it was a cute movie about the meaning of life, and I don't know, it's kind of advanced because I don't really get the twist at the end about the spark isn't what you're made to do. It's I don't even get it, but I have a feeling it has a chance to become a classic, which is pretty cool because we haven't gotten any Pixar movies that are like top tier levels lately. Last but not least, we have other old movies. This is basically just movies that I watched in 2020 but don't really fit into a specific category, so I just grouped them all together to put at the end. So, first, we'll talk about Fistful of Dollars because that's like the first one that came out because it is super old. And I just really like the classic vibe it gave off. And it's just like the most classic western you could get. So I really liked it for that because it like set the way for other westerns and just movies in general, I guess. And next is Batman. And this is like the only movie I legit didn't like at all in this list because I don't know, it was bad. It was slow and bad and just I didn't like it. Like most of the movies that I didn't finish was because I fell asleep, but this is one that I ended just because I really didn't like it. Like the only thing I liked about it was like the comic booky looking villains, like the Riddler and Two-Face. Like those actors did a good job, I think, at like making the villains look very comic booky, and I like that. But everything else, I was not pleasant. And then we have The Big Lebowski. And I watched this one because of that one scene from Endgame where Tony called Thor the Big Lebowski. So I looked into it and I'm like, what is the Big Lebowski? And then I found out it came from this movie. So I watched this movie and I really liked it. It was a good movie all about a rug that really matched the room. If if you watch the movie, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And yeah, I really liked it, and the comedy just really it connected with me. Like some people it probably won't land with them, but for me, I really liked it. And then finally we have Castaway, and I like this one because it feels very realistic. It feels like what would someone do if they were stuck on an island, and that's exactly what it is. It feels like a Survivor TV show, but less of like the drama and romance crap and just surviving, and it makes for a really good movie. And surprisingly, there hasn't been many other movies about surviving on an island like that I've heard of as good as this one. Like this is another one that just set the way, and nothing has topped it yet as Survivor Island movies. To end off this video, I thought it'd be fun just to tell you my favorite movies that I discovered in 2020 out of all of the movies we've been talking about. All of, or most of the movies on this list were pretty good, but these two they're not movies by themselves, but they're like a group of movies. They're the best that I've discovered, and there's other ones that are really good too, but they're not as good as this one. And these ones I've just haven't heard much about, and I like tried them, and I am so glad I did. They were so amazing. So the winners are Christopher Nolan movies, besides Interstellar, and John Wick trilogy. These ones were really good, and I wasn't expecting much from them, but they really delivered, and I can't wait for the other movies that Christopher Nolan will make and the creators of John Wick will make. So that's all I have for today, so farewell.